Raise your hand if you knew exactly what you wanted to do since you were a little kid. Nice. There we go, one or two. There's not many of us, and I certainly wasn't one of those people. My stepdad, he knew he wanted to be a fighter pilot since he was 5 years old. I've never had that level of certainty, and I was always envious of the people that did. I flirted with so many possibilities. I wanted to be a marine biologist, a ninja spy, a race car driver. And so I've been curious, how do you know when you're going down the right path in your career, and does that lead you to your purpose? And so I asked people that, and the answers I got back around career were usually pretty tangible, but the answers I got back around purpose were often a bit more vague and came with this sticky ball of emotion of tension. And purpose is a buzzword right now. We see it show up in weekend yoga retreats and hashtags on Instagram, but it can also be daunting and overwhelming and messy. And so I wondered why. Why is there this tension that surrounds purpose? And I think it's two things. And the first one has to do with self-actualization. So let me give you some context. We're in a time of transition. Our relationship with traditional institutions is changing, and we're moving away from religion. 70% of young people in the UK identify with no religion. And some would see this as a symptom of moral decline, and others would see it as triumph of reason over superstition. But either way, what I notice is that it's leaving a gap, and people are hungry. They're hungry to learn, to talk about spirituality in a new way, and ultimately to self-actualize. And so we're looking to brands, we're looking to self-development books and podcasts and TED Talks to fill that void. The self-development market is forecasted to be worth $13 billion by 2022 in the US alone. So I'm pulling this term self-actualization from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Abraham Maslow was this cool guy who really started the human potential movement back in the 60s. And he said that all human beings have a certain number of needs, and they're hierarchical. So he arranged them in this 5-tier pyramid that you've probably seen. So starting from the bottom going up is physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and then at the peak is self-actualization. So the needs at the bottom, the most fundamental needs, are the needs for survival, for food, for water, for warmth, etc. And we must satisfy those needs at the bottom before we can look and attend to the needs at the top. And most of us in the US and the UK have our basic needs met. So we're no longer solving the problem of survival, and instead we're moving up that pyramid and solving the problem of purpose, of fulfillment, of self-actualization. Okay, so how do you know when you're on the path to your purpose? So let's go back to my wannabe career as a race car driver. I didn't become one, although the amount of speeding tickets I got would suggest otherwise. I did, however, find a career that I love, and it's inside of leadership development, because I get to see how organizations reach their peak performance by their teams reaching their full potential. And so once I had clarity in my career, I then began to look at love in the same context. And I wondered, how do you know who the one is or who you should marry? And I was really fascinated by that phrase, when you know, you know. And so again, I started asking married couples, divorced couples, straight couples, gay couples, what the hell do you mean when you know, you know? I couldn't wrap my head around it. And the answer that came back was universal. You just do. It's a feeling. And then I found my husband, and I got it. And it was on our second date over a big glass of red wine, and he shared his secrets, and I shared mine, and I just knew. And I had been asking this question for a decade, and in a moment I got it, and it washed over me, and it felt like coming home. And so I wondered, is the same thing true with your purpose? When you've struck that chord of purpose, does it all feel in tune? Does it also feel like coming home? And so I looked at the resources and conversations surrounding purpose. And my husband and I, we lived in Japan for 2 years, and it's there that I learned the term ikigai. And ikigai is the Japanese term for the reason for being, the source of value in life, the things that make life worthwhile. And that balance is found at the intersection of where your passions and talents converge with what the world needs and is willing to pay for. So this is really fundamental. So the source of value in life is found where your passions and talents converge with what the world needs and is willing to pay for. And the fundamental truth of Ikigai is that nothing is in silo. So this isn't about individual achievement. The suffering that we often find in trying to discover our purpose is because it's actually not connected to how we serve the world. So your Ikigai is about what you love, and it's also about what the world needs. So it takes purpose from me to us. So then I read this book by Viktor Frankl called A Man's Search for Meaning. And Frankl was an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist, and he wrote the book after surviving 4 concentration camps in World War II, including Auschwitz. And he addresses this tension between suffering and purpose. And through his experience of observing people in the most dire of circumstances and from surviving them himself, he writes this profound statement: your life has its own meaning, and it's up to you to find it in any given moment. Your life has its own meaning, and it's up to you to find it in any given moment. And then he shares this story where he's stumbling through the night across icy rocks, and he's being forced to work by the Nazi guards, and simply by looking up into the sky and imagining his wife's face in the clouds, he finds meaning. He finds meaning inside of love and finds bliss in that moment. And so he realizes there's no general purpose of life. There's no singular purpose for his own life. And that fulfillment can come from a cause to serve, a person to love, and from courage in the face of difficulty. And what I love about and appreciate about Frankl's life is that he took his worst experience, his worst day, and he made it his highest contribution to the world. And we too can take our worst day and change the meaning. And there's this common misconception that you have to know the meaning of your life first before you can live your best life. And Frankl, the act of his life, proves that no, instead it is how you act and how much responsibility you bring to the decisions that you make that determines how big your sense of meaning in life is. And there is no one-size-fits-all purpose. There are infinite potential meanings to be found in life, no matter the circumstance. And for me, this really highlights the beauty of choice, because what that means is that we are each responsible for answering that for our own lives. And so what Ikigai and Frankl have in common is they both assert that the discovery of your purpose must be found out in the world rather than in isolated contemplation. And most of us, we want to know what the secret of fulfillment is. And the secret is, it's not about us. That purpose and success and fulfillment come from a dedication to a cause greater than ourselves. Okay, so I said there were 2 reasons why I see tension around purpose. And the first one was self-actualization. And the second one has to do with the disparity between living a comfortable life and living a fulfilled life. In order to talk about that, we have to talk about something that might be a little contentious, because it's quite popular right now, and that's self-care. And I am all aboard the self-care train, like choo-choo, all the way to the massage tables. However, it is connected to a sentiment that eliminating discomfort is a priority. And that mindset could absolutely get in the way of our fulfillment. Because there's this imperative to be happy that characterizes our culture, and that the being happy and moving away from tension is the ultimate goal. And we ease this tension by eating, by scrolling through Instagram, by drinking a few too many. I know. And if you consider the gap between who you are and who you hope to become, that's healthy tension. And I would urge us not to throw that out in favor of this calm Zen equilibrium, but actually to see it as a critical component of mental health. And this is really big, because if self-care is the priority, or if having a life without tension is the sole focus, that is what leaves us with this spiritual vacuum, this void. So what I want to leave you with is, it's not the discharge of tension that we need, but it is the reason to be happy that we ought to strive for, rather than happiness itself. Happiness occurs as a side effect to actualizing your potential. And I want you to think of the last time you felt truly happy, like true overwhelming joy. Bring it to mind. Good, you got it. I'd be willing to bet it was linked to progress, to a poignant moment that took effort and energy to arrive at. The most basic example of that is the birth of a human child. because it's this visceral and tangible expression of full human potential. And it's often the hallmark of a lifetime. So our main concern in humankind is not to gain pleasure or avoid pain, but is to find meaning in life, to strive for a worthwhile purpose, to strive for a goal that is worthy of your energy, your joy, your time, your passion, a goal that gives you fulfillment. So let's ditch this age-old question of what is the meaning of life, and instead ask, what is life calling from us? I've learned that when I lean into tension, I take full responsibility and open up to the infinite potential meanings in life, whether career, love, anything. There is meaning to be found in each moment. And I'm confident that when you strike the sweet chord of purpose, you'll know. Because when you know, you know. Thank you.